welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live, yes, all the way live from Black Girl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Okay, y'all, it's the final countdown. The excitement is in the air. We're going to flip some seats. We're going to make some changes in our state house. I do believe it is going to happen. I believe that we're going to end that supermajority. I believe we're going to send more people to Washington. I believe that we have what it takes to move our state forward and stop being at the bottom of every statistical category that matters. I believe true blue. I believe folks want to make sure that we can protect women's bodies or women's choice to protect their bodies, to make their own decisions. I believe. So, yeah, I'm a little excited. I'm ready to go. Cool news, y'all. If you're going to be in the Indianapolis area, I'm going to be live streaming with some buddies of mine. Deb Chubb, Miguel Hampton, and Mark Gavart. We're going to get together. I'm going to do a watch party live stream. So make sure you tune in for that. If you can't come downtown or you don't want to go out to the watch parties, not a problem. We will bring the watch party to you. Technology is beautiful like that, right? So that being said, I will be on location here in Indianapolis to make sure that I can maybe get some interviews with our state party reps, things of that nature. And then maybe if a few candidates come strolling through, me, I'll try to finagle them in. But we're also looking at, possibly streaming some of those candidates in. So hopefully there's an opportunity for us to have great conversations. But before I go any further, I do have a rant tonight. I mean, I got like a long, kind of tenuous rant. Do y'all remember back last year or during the summertime or whatever it was? And, those folks was running around suburban Indiana talking about CRT, oh my God, CRT. You remember that? And then every educator that you talked to said, we're not teaching critical race theory. It is a law school, theory that is only taught to law school students. We're not teaching it K through 12. But they were so crazy that they even created a Parents' Bill of Rights. Y'all remember that? Remember what it said? Ty Rakita, that dude. You have the right and expectation to question and address your child's school officials via letters, electronic communication, and in-person meetings. You also have the right to attend publicly designated meetings with prior notice of meetings provided. And then they went so far as in the State House to pass legislation to make school boards, to require school boards to take public comments. You have the right and expectation to provide public comment at designated school board meetings. You have the right and expectation to question and review curriculum taught in your child's school. You have the right and expectation that academic curriculum taught in your child's school aligns with Indiana and federal law. You have the right and expectation to participate in the selection of adoption of academic standards for the state of Indiana. You have the right to run as a candidate for your local school board. You have the right and expectation to make medical care decisions on behalf of your child. Mark that one, y'all, including vaccinations and immunizations. You have the right and expectations to receive your child's student health records. You have the right to receive social education services on behalf of your child with a disability, regardless of enrollment in a public school system. You have a constitutional right to direct the upbringing and education of your child in a manner that you see fit, and you have the right to request a transfer for your public school child to attend another public school that is either within or outside the boundaries of the school district. And finally, you have the right to apply for school choice offerings through the Indiana Choice Scholarship Program. Y'all remember that? I want to make sure I read all that, because here's, it sounds good, don't it? It sounds real good, like I have the right. But see, I want y'all to understand. Say my little melanated behind has a child in one of these suburban school systems, and it said that I had the right to question curriculum. Would my melanated self parent be able to demand, like they did at those school board meetings, that they teach the real history of the slave trade and not call it the triangular trade? or that they were migrant workers, because you know in Texas that's what they're trying to say, they was migrant workers. Would me as a gay parent, would I be allowed to, like, you know, insist on making sure that they acknowledge and protect if my trans kid, and that if I decided to perform a medical procedure like hormone blockers on my 17-year-old minor child, that I would be able to do that? Do I have those rights? Would those rights apply to me? See, I read all that because I want y'all to understand, those were not meant for us. Those were for those folks in suburban Indiana. First of all them screaming CRT folk didn't show up in urban Indiana. They just didn't. Nor did they go out in rural Indiana. This is only in suburban Indiana, where wealthier folks who are mixing and mingling, and it's a multiracial universe of a kaleidoscope of families at these schools, right? School boards are on the ballot this year. So why am I bringing all of this up, Dana? Why are you going there? When the Indianapolis Star reports, Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita is endorsing multiple school board candidates in suburban school districts that are mostly stressing parental rights and concerned that liberal ideologies are taking over schools. I'm sorry, wait, liberal ideologies are taking over school? Come on now. I mean, they make it sound like it's wrong to be accepting of people who are different than you. Mark me crazy. I don't know. I want you to know, especially in Hamilton County, if you're listening, I want you to know the candidates that one Attorney General Todd Rokita is endorsing. I want you to know who these folks are, because we know on our ballots, there's no R, there's no D, there's no I, there's no L, there's no G, there's no nothing. It's just a list of names in alphabetical order. So if you are in Hamilton County, these are the candidates that Todd Rokita is endorsing. Write them down. He is endorsing Jenny Brake, and he is endorsing Greg Brown, and he is endorsing Adam Sharp. Attorney Todd Rokita is endorsing Jenny Brake, Greg Brown, and Adam Sharp, who are all running on a joint campaign that is emphasizing, among other things, parental rights and a desire to improve the district's testing scores. Now, I want y'all to be clear. This is nothing new. All of this is bubbling up from the same thing. They don't want to tell you that Europeans at one time thought it was cool. People of European descent thought it was cool to go ahead and put in shackles and chains and beat and separate families and commit major atrocities that have been impacted to multiple civilizations over generations. They don't want their kids to know that. They don't want their kids to know that, right? Those are those people. Jenny Brake, Greg Brown, Adam Sharp, prove me wrong. But he didn't just stay in Hamilton County, y'all. Oh, no. No, he went out to Avon. He went out to the west side too. And he's endorsing some candidates out there. So if you're in Avon and you're looking at your Avon endorsement packet, I want you to recognize who Attorney General Todd Rokita is endorsing. He's endorsing Jennifer Smith and Shauna Lake. Write them down. I'm not going to tell you that you should or shouldn't vote for a certain person, because that would be haterism. But what I will say is, if your value system does not align with Attorney General Todd Rokita, then you might want to take a closer look at those particular candidates. That's all I'm saying. Or better yet, look at the ones he ain't endorsing. Hey, you work that out. Everybody's got their own ballot. All right? Now, if you get a chance, and if you are a subscriber to the Indianapolis Star, they did an amazing job on listing who PACs are. And that came out today. It's really interesting. I posted it to my Facebook page. If you have a subscription, you'll be able to read it. But it lists all of the PACs that are endorsing school board candidates. This is important as well, right? So Tyra, because think about it again, there's so many school board races. There's no way you can keep up. And if you don't have an opportunity to go and ask the questions and look up all these candidates on your ballot, you should be able to go to your county clerk and get a sample ballot to see who's on there. That way you'll have time between now, if you haven't already early voted, you have time to go look and see who they are. But I want you guys to understand, this is when we talk about having the long game, this is one of their long games. Taking over and privatizing public schools and then pretending that they're doing it for the sake of the kids. No, they're doing it, and I'm gonna say it, you ain't gotta agree with me, and I'm good if you don't agree with me, but they're doing it for the sake of holding on to power. Now, you can make of what my job is to give you some information and share it with you and allow you to disseminate that information the best way you can. Talk to the people how you want to talk to them. But please know, if you elect the wrong person to your school board, that could be decades, I say, of issues for our young people. I need you to understand that. It will be decades of issues for our young people. And then those who have the means, the financial means, their kids will be fine. They'll be off doing what they do in La La Land, while the rest of our children will continue to struggle and not have the same opportunities that those other families have. And that's not what our country is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be about, everyone having access to quality education. Quality education. That's why we have a whole bunch of people right now following the guise of an orange menace, because they don't know what the difference between truth and fact and how to disseminate truth and fact. We need to go back. I mean, I dig testing and making sure that kids know, basic stuff, but we need to go back to the point of allowing children to let their brains grow, and let our teachers are supposed to water it with information and knowledge, and then let that child go find his way and seek out information. When we stifle our children, I believe, when we make them sit and study to only pass a test. Because the test of life, oh my God, it is so much harder. All right. That is my rant. I know it was a little longer than usual, y'all, but I tell you what, school board is way too important for us to not pay attention. And I know that y'all know me, I love the state house, and there's too many school board races for me to tell you who to vote for, but all I'm saying is Tyra is endorsing them. You might want to take a second look. All right, that's my rant. Thank you so much for joining us on Turn Left. And, I have two great guests tonight. I'm so looking forward to my guests because, every now and then you meet people that have energy higher than yours, right? Every now and then. And so tonight we're going to have a good time in talking to a couple of folks. First up, I don't know, I'm waiting till he comes. There he is. There he is. First up, Black women continue to set the bar for our party. And I love it. I love that we show up, show out, no matter how much support we get, how much support we don't get, don't matter. We still show and put our name on the ballot. Y'all, running for House District 56, all the way from Richmond, Indiana. Y'all give it up for my girl, Miss C. Yvonne Washington. Miss Yvonne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for inviting me.
I love it.
To be here.
And look, y'all think I'm playing. This might be a show where I might actually turn over the hosting duties to this amazing, first of all, his spirit, his energy is so incredibly effervescent. I had the chance to meet him and dance with him and just be happy and enjoy in a joyous space with him. It's very rare that you get to meet just people and you're in their space and they draw you in. You don't know nothing about them, but all you know is you want to be around them. Y'all give it up. Who a senator who is running for reelection, and we need to send him back to the state senate. Senator Michael Griffin. Senator, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so proud to be on here. I know we're working this out so it could happen, and I'm thrilled to do it today. And I'm very glad to be on the same program with the venerable Miss Washington. Pleasure to see you, Miss Washington.
I love it. I'm glad you could join us.
You,
I think I
Michael.
hit up like all of your handles. So how are you guys? See,
Dancing part I love.
right? See, okay, so Mike, you missed my rant, but Miss Yvonne, did you have any comments on any of that rant that I put out about school boards and the importance of making sure we recognize who are on these ballots?
Dana, have you read any of the information on my website?
No. Of course I have. Why do you think I led with you?
I just wanted to know how much time do you want to dedicate to this conversation?
This is a conversation. We got a whole hour. We can go as long as we like. This my studio.
Okay, so in addition to making sure we know the candidates, we also have to know the process. You know, how did they get on the ballot? You know, what was their background and experience? Because what I have experienced is it's not only manipulation from other school board members, but also support teams, you know, providing information to newspapers, providing information to board members, and, you know, even to the candidates themselves. That's where I experienced an issue. So it's a much larger than their name being on the ballot. It's how did they get there? Who are they connected to? Just like you say, you want to know what's in it for Todd Rokita. Why is he supporting these people?
Absolutely. Ty Makita is somewhat sus, and you know, he spends a lot of our money hanging out at the border. I mean, it'd be different if he was on the Ohio River or Lake Michigan, those borders, but that's not the border he spends our money on. And he spends, you know, and then he also spends a lot of our tax dollars fighting unconstitutional laws. So, and he's always eager for the fight. He's always eager for the fight. So, you know, I am not a fan of Ty Rokita. Senator Griffin is much more diplomatic than I am, so he's not going to weigh in on that. But, you know, let's just dive into it because I took a lot of time on my rant today because I really wanted to go down through that Bill of Rights. I am going to start with Miss Yvonne first. Tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Oh my goodness, I am a Richmond native and have had opportunities to live in larger cities. So I lived in Dallas Fort Worth for a while, lived in Tulsa area for a while, but I've been single, married, separated, divorced, and have raised children and grandchildren in all of those phases. I have been unemployed, underemployed, self-employed, and now gainfully employed. So I can relate to just about every experience that the residents of District 56 have had. I have friends who are broke and are couch surfers. I have friends who are millionaires. So it just depends on what time of day, you know, what season we're looking at as to who my friends are and how those relationships can help me be the best legislator that District 56 has ever had.
I love it. And so what I know that we talked before and I have a little insight, but you've been on the ballot before. Why is it so important that you're in a position where you're representing the folks of Richmond?
Well, it was very important for me to learn the process, and that's been a parallel to how my career, you know, as far as my jobs have gone too, is I will start out in a support position or a lower ballot race and learn all the details, all the circumstances, but also the areas of compromise, you know, the areas where we are just either being incompetent or willfully not abiding by the laws that govern certain positions. So, with each race, it's like I learned more. And then after each race, I thought I was done, but then I learned I need to go higher to the next position. And what was interesting is that because I live in brown skin, you know, people kept trying to relegate me to clerical positions. Like they were okay with me running for the township trustee, but then they wanted me to look at city clerk, and then they wanted me to look at, county commissioner. But it's like having that faith that I use as a tool for social justice. I was not in agreement with the things that they were suggesting. So that is what has brought me here. I ran for Wayne County trustee. I ran for Wayne Township trustee, sorry, the city council, and then the county clerk. Once I figured out that the problems that I experienced in those other three races were connected to the clerk's office, I decided I needed to run for that too, and bring some correction there as well. So from there, we looked at the position for the House District 56, and everything about me is a policymaker. Uh, every job that I've been on, I'm the one that creates the guidelines and monitors the budgets line by line. So this too is a perfect fit for me because I've learned how to identify my skills, which ones will transfer, and then find opportunities that will allow me to grow and connect with people who need my support.
I love it. I love it. All right. Senator, tell the people who you
Yes.
are and where you come from.
Well, first, I want to commend Miss Washington. I didn't realize she was from Richmond. I have some fond memories of that city. The city
Okay.
clerk there, I consider a former colleague and friend, but not a former friend of mine. And I love the fact that there's a Quaker seminary there. It's the only place in the United States, I think, that has that. So I love that about that. And I could tell you another story about somebody that I feel very fond of down there, but if I told you, then you'd know. So I'm going to keep that my secret. So now about me. Thank you for asking. I am Michael Griffin. I am currently the serving state senator in Senate District 1. I'm finishing an unexpired term that was so honorably and nobly served by State Senator Frank Mervan, the father of our member of Congress up here in Congressional District 1, Frank Mervan. Senator Mervan decided that after 40 years, his heart and his head were still in the work. I know that for sure. He'd be there if he could be, but I think that he just felt like that his health was challenging him enough that it was time. So I was caucused in back in February of this year, and it feels like I've been running ever since. I went through my party's primary, our Democratic Party primary, and then I'm now running to hopefully be elected in my own right. The interesting thing about this is Senate District 1 has been modified considerably. The places it represents up here now are a little more balanced than they used to be. Used to be the primary generally would be a good indicator that you'd have a good chance in the fall. Now I think it's just evenly competitive,
Wow.
which doesn't trouble me at all. I feel really optimistic about things going a certain way, but we're working hard every day. So I represent my home community of Highland, where I was the clerk treasurer of that town for 30 years. And I think I needed every one of those years to get me ready to be a state senator. I believe that with all my heart. And I actually echo a little bit about what Ms. Washington said. Although in that role, you're not a policymaker, you do try from your training, because I actually am an adjunct instructor. I teach about public budget and finance and local government structure as well. I felt like one of my jobs is to inform the council about policies that I think could improve things. So I often implemented my recommendations, and sometimes I implemented things that weren't my recommendations. But after doing that a long time, you kind of feel like maybe I would like to try not to just carry out policy, but make some.
Okay.
I feel that in my heart. So I have a servant's heart for public service. Now I want to represent Highland, Griffith. This may not be known to all of your viewers, but some will. Highland, Griffith, 9 precincts in Maryville, a little bit of Calumet Township, but not including the city of Gary, and all of St. John Township, which is Cherryville, Dyer, St. John the town, and then the unincorporated portion. And that is an interesting number of folks, but I'm happy, and I've been meeting everybody with some rare exceptions. I've been greeted with an open mind in most cases, and often with kindness. I can't say that every one of those people were inclined to favor me after I spoke to them, especially when I knew they might be a little bit more inclined to the other party, but they were gracious. And I've been meeting a lot of people who've been very inclined to support me. So I feel very optimistic, but I'm taking only a little bit of time to meet with you both here today and have this kind time that's very kind, so that I can get back out there on the streets and meet more people.
I know, and I really do appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to come talk to the Turn Left listeners. And here's the cool thing, guys. If you like what either of these candidates are talking about, click on their donate link. I have attached their AdBlue donate link, so there's an opportunity for you to contribute to their
Thank you.
campaigns. Yes, Senator, I turn these into fundraisers. My job, my goal. Everybody got a job
Thank
to do,
you.
right? Y'all supposed to be elected. I'm supposed to help y'all get elected. Everybody got a job to do. So let's talk about some things, y'all. You know, that state house right now, that supermajority, I have a feeling that the spirit is high today, so we're going to just let it flow however it flow, okay? That state house has a supermajority, and y'all both talked about, you know, the compromise and the ability to work across the aisle. But when you're seeing legislation that is being pushed through that isn't often aligned with your value system or the value system of the people that you represent, talk about some of your plans on how you are going to, and or successes that you've had that will be helpful once you're in that state house. Hopefully we can flip that supermajority, but we'll start there. And Miss Washington, we'll start with you. Look at, he's rubbing off on me. Miss Washington.
Oh, well, thank you. I've had wonderful opportunities to visit with current legislatures and, learning the procedures and the process and building relationships is going to be important for me. That's
Absolutely.
how I have always been successful, is to connect to people who are interested in the things that I'm interested in, but being able to complement, our approaches to do what is best for the largest number of people. And that's something that I've used over and over again, is being able to keep the people in the forefront so we can work together to find out, what's going to benefit them to the highest good and then over the longest period of time. So taking self-interest out of the way,
Mm,
because I think we have gone too far as people just connecting with people who can either further their careers or make sure they have more money. This just the disappointment, really.
yeah,
Most people are frustrated and disappointed with what they have experienced so far.
yeah, yeah. Senator?
I actually think Miss Washington's insight is spot on. Legislating, I have found, even in my brief 9 months of being in the Senate and watching local legislative bodies, city and town councils work for many years, is relationships. Though the new thing for me is that partisanship does establish some of the who's in charge and who gets to advocate for certain things. But at least my experience in the Senate, while that's a presence, I still feel like I'm a putative equal or a co-equal with all my 49 fellow senators. And there is a deep, so I believe that I have to demonstrate that I believe we all have equal dignity. I try to respect the years of service and the kind of expertise that many of them have developed by their long service there. I already had a good opportunity to represent some of mine prior to being elected, because I often would testify as an advocate for cities and towns in the state of Indiana as a clerk treasurer for many years. And I tried very hard to be polite, because I think that's one of the ways that we teach everybody. We teach my daughter to be polite, because that's about equal dignity. And I think that's an important value that we need to, because equal dignity really leads to equal treatment or equality of thinking, not the same thinking, but a quality of regard, which I think is a fundamental that we ought to always be advocating in one way or another. I can give a small example where I built on the work of people who did a lot before me. In this most recent special session, as you know, one of the issues was women's health liberty. And in the belief that we weren't going to be able to modify the position very much of I call it the excessive majority. I don't like to say super majority. It makes them seem heroic.
And they're
Excessive, I
not.
think, is a good word. Not that there's not heroes among them. I'm not disparaging any one of them, but I think as a group, sometimes there's just a lot of there's a lot of ways in which they don't have to listen. I will say, to other points of view, although they've got several in their own caucus, I will say that in the Senate, there still seems to be some regard for listening to others. But having said that, so there was a series of an attempts by my colleagues in the Democratic caucus, so skilled and so sincere and earnest. And I love those people. That's just a great group of people to serve with. They were trying to make modifications that would improve then things like lowering our maternal mortality rate, which is the third worst in the United States.
Yes.
That's nothing to be proud of. We ought to fix that. And to also create or reduce the barriers that if we're going to have rising maternity rates or parenthood, then let's see if we can do things that remove some of those barriers, the cost of early child care, or in many cases, we were trying to remove the taxes off of diapers. And I even tried to do with women's personal hygiene products,
Mm-hmm.
if that's artful enough to say.
Wait a minute, hold up.
Now, I was the
What?
first.
You mean to tell me as
Yeah,
a man, you didn't have to actually need to use the product to advocate for women to have some help? Oh my God.
no, I am firstly, I teach graduate students public budget and finance. And when we define tax base, we talked about sales taxes, and there wasn't a woman in the class that asked me where the justice was and adding those to it. And there was no analogy to for men. And I thought about it, and I thought they've convinced me. Now, people like State Senator Shelley Yoder, had been advocating for it
Mm-hmm.
for a long time um, to do this. So she consented to allow me to try to have that amendment made as well, which largely reflected some of the work she had done several times before. So I don't want it to sound as if this idea was original
No,
with
no,
me. It
no.
was
We
not,
got you.
but I was sympathetic, and a lot of
Listen,
good
you would
people
have been
worked on it.
superhuman if you actually came up with the idea yourself. I'm gonna be
Oh,
real with you
yes,
because there are
yeah,
things we as women don't know about dues and what y'all need. So, if y'all don't tell us, how we gonna know?
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But I'm a father of a 13-year-old daughter. I don't think I have to say any more.
Oh, you
So
hitting into the fun years.
yes, that's what I'm told. I love her so much. It's all fun for me. But I do
That's what
notice
my
that
mother
she's
said
got
too,
free
right before
will
she
and
sent me to
takes
my
off
room.
her
I
shirt
love her
off.
so much.
And that's so nice to hear. In any event, I proposed that sales tax come off of diapers. That was rejected as an amendment when we went through. But what happened was in the conference committee report that we all got to vote on, they somehow decided to add sales tax exemption for children's diapers. If we want to get adult diapers, that'll be another fight, but children's
Yeah.
diapers were removed. And I felt like I had a hand in that. Now, of course, the majority is the author of that, because especially in the special session, much of the composition of the bills came from the majority, the leadership there. But it made me feel gratified that they felt like it might be a good time to relent on that.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I spoke about it on the floor is that we've already narrowed that part of that sales tax base already,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't contribute as much. And I also said I'm not usually in favor of doing these kinds of things without a study to know a little bit about impact. But because we had significant surpluses, which we've talked about, I mean
Yes, Lord.
significant surpluses, and January would be here in no time. If there needed to be an adjustment, we could do that. And it appeared that spoke to the people who think about those things that way, which to me is not ideological. That's just good public finance practice.
Yeah.
And they passed that. So I feel gratified by that. So sometimes the victories are little, but they're won because you try to make your idea be based on its merits or empirically, and then you try to have good relationships with other people where you don't decide that they're not open to those ideas. You try to wrap them in their best cloth. And remember, it was part of a lot of ideas. And I always said that Senator Yoder and others who had proposed that before probably got them open the idea, and they kept wearing them down and wearing them down. And I just got lucky. I was there the day where the little push was all that was
I
necessary.
love it. So since both of you all have, you both have ran for office before, and Michael, I know how much they love you in the Clerks League. I mean, my guy, that's how I met. My girlfriend is the clerk in Bloomington, so I found, and then Miss Yvonne, I've been to Richmond. I've seen how active you are, but
Yes.
there's something I believe that is unique about those who are insistent on being public servants. Was there something in your youth, in your upbringing, that instilled in you the desire to be servants? And Miss Yvonne, I'll start with you. Oh, no, these ain't gonna
Yeah.
just be policy questions. I want people to know who you are.
Yes, I actually come from a family of leaders, and there are a handful of us that are also serving in ministry. And so that's why I say my faith became a tool for social justice by watching my parents' example. My grandparents, they came up as part of the migration from the deep south, to
Mm-hmm.
leave the murderous history that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes my grandmother was left alone to raise children because my grandfather was in the Navy.
Okay.
And so every time he came home, there would be a new baby, but she's here, raising children by herself. So that type of leadership and sacrifice, growing up, in my home, my parents were entrepreneurs. My dad worked at a factory until that was no longer available. he went back to school and trained as an upholsterer first, and then went on to school to earn an associate's degree. So he was the first college graduate in his family. And so being able to be exposed to all different cultures coming in and out of our home, because the businesses were run at home. My mom was a gifted seamstress. And so watching her design the clothing
Mm-hmm.
for entire wedding parties,
Wow.
making leather coats. Well, before we knew anything about Vera Wang and Michael Kors and some of these others, it was fashion designed especially for you by Margaret Washington.
I
So I
love
grew
it.
up with that.
I love it.
Wow.
What about you, Senator? What was in your upbringing?
Well, I have to say, my religion informed it. My faith made me a Democrat. I know that there's people out there that might be praying for me now. I covet that. I welcome it. Go right ahead. But it started there too. I explored it a number of ways. For a little while, I thought I wanted to be a West Point appointee, but I'm profoundly asthmatic, which I think also drove my sense of servanthood, because it makes you compassionate when you can understand that there's things that people don't talk about all the time that just make them not seem as strong as they could be. And you kind of get humbled by those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. I did think about the ministry for a little while in my life. I was 5.5 years a youth minister in a Church of God a long time ago, uh, more than 30 years ago now, experimenting with it, thinking about being a candidate for ordination. I just never felt called. In my faith tradition, that's important. I just didn't feel called. People I know that felt that knew it. I just didn't. I also felt like I wanted to focus on the not judgmental parts of my
Mm-hmm.
faith, and the not that those rules, and the rules about loving other people as your neighbor, which I take seriously. And I was lucky I had parents who believed that too. My mom was probably the most influential in my understanding of those kinds of things. And my dad's love of neighbors and people is the same. They were kind of a really good team there. So after I explored that and didn't think that would be the case, I decided to get my education. I actually took a religious studies degree, but at a state school to show I wasn't called. It was non-devotional. But after that graduation, I did it for 5.5 years. I then started working on my MPA. And because I was an intern for a member of Congress a very long time ago who's gone, I met his one staff member. His name was Pete Visklosky.
Yeah. Oh,
You might have heard of him.
no,
And
no,
then he
nobody
became a
knows.
member of
That's an
Congress.
obscure name.
Yeah.
Where'd you pull that one out of?
Right. Yeah. And then because of that relationship, I got the opportunity to come and become a member of his staff. I was his field director for about a year. And then the long-serving clerk treasurer of the town of Highland decided he wasn't going to run again. And I know this sounds weird, but my superpower is being a nerd. I
Love it.
love the money part. That was what my studies were in, public finance and budget. But I also like the clerk stuff. There's a great history in it. There's clericus is actually the word, this Latin for the word we derive clergy from. It's really cool. And I even like the history of seals. So that opportunity presented itself. In 1992, I became the 7th only clerk treasurer in the history of the town of Highland. They consolidated a separate office of clerk treasurer in 1935 statewide. So it's only 7 from that date. And remained in that job, loving it. I liked all parts of it, but I confess that I worked hardest at the financial side. And the thing that I grew to love doing that, which wasn't something I ordinarily would have gravitated to, because I do like the fine arts. I played the baritone, which is hardly being a musician, but I did. I was in band. Was there's not a policy matter in the public sector that doesn't implicate financial resources. So if you can understand the budget process and equip in making decisions about incidents of taxation, what's the appropriate fee structure? Should it be a user fee or a tax or something else that helps pay for a particular policy that makes it sustainable? I felt like I had my hand in every policy, and I got to do that very well. I'm very blessed that I got to be respected about that. I got to, after my MPA, become an adjunct instructor in this discipline at IUN. I love the many students who became interested in it because I tried to make it like a performance art to teach. And then this opportunity to be in the state Senate presented itself. And I thought I might be leaving after this term as clerk treasurer. I didn't know that I'd be running as an incumbent. I honestly thought I'd be the clerk treasurer trying to succeed that state senator Frank Mervan, whose dad who is the dad of our member of Congress.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I got to become a senator. And boy, was that an education. I found I loved it. I loved it more than I thought I would. And so now I'm grateful to have the opportunity, because I don't think public office is about the title. Although I'm human enough to get a kick out of it. That I
Ain't
love
that
that
it?
my name was on the sign when he came into town, and I'm getting a kick out of being a senator, but not for those reasons alone. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the end. It's about people and serving them. And every office ought to be considered. There's no little office or big office. There's just sometimes small people to get in them or big people. And it's just about the opportunity of serving the public, which is not small ever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like this is the place I got equipped for after those 30 years of serving in the way I did, that have made me ready, that gave me the relationships, the contacts,
Yeah.
the skills, the experience, the training, the education, to be ready to continue to serve my friends and neighbors in Senate District 1 with my skill sets. But I am contending because it's a new district. It's very competitive. The thing I can't control is the national environment, but I'm doing the very best I
Yeah,
can to control what I can,
well, and you
which
know
is
what?
meeting as many people as possible.
I think
I'm
people
sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
I think people spend too much time worried about the Fed stuff anyway. When I think that the power is in the state house anyway. I mean, think about it. The state house can determine what comes down from the Fed and gets implemented into the municipalities, and then they can determine what the municipalities will do. For example, they took away Indianapolis. The city county council here in Indianapolis is the only city council or county council without at-large seats. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah,
Yes.
so they can. There's power there, and I wish people would focus more on what's going on in the state house, because yes, all politics are local. So don't, I'm not tripping and saying that, what's happening at the municipal levels don't matter. But the ability to shape a community really starts with that state house, because there's funding there. There's, the laws that are being passed. But I want to go back to something else. Both of you spoke it. And I don't know if you were intentionally trying to sprinkle all of your grace on me or not, but I caught it, and it's pitter-pattering around in my heart. I want y'all to know I'm flirting over here. I'm just fluttering. I talked about this with Zanae Brooks, who is also running for our auditor, and how
She's
important her
great.
faith is, and how it shapes how she is seen in the world. And I'm often offended when one side of the aisle attempts to suggest that they have a moratorium on faith
Yes.
and belief in the divine or whatever deity it is.
Yes.
I want folks to be clear about how your faith also helps to shape how you see your political space, and or even why your faith even wanted you to be involved with it. Miss Yvonne, you kind of touched on it, so I'm going to have you start first.
Okay, for me, one of the things that has emerged from my faith and, faith in God is a supernatural peace, because there are many things going on in the world and there are lots of things available. But for me, being centered, in the love of God gives me peace. And in that, He has moved me through being able to provide transitional leadership. So in different departments, in different organizations, oftentimes everybody else would be vaporized, laid off, leave, quit, whatever it might
Mm-hmm.
be. And I'm the one who's holding down the entire program. And it got it has started happening so often. I just started putting that on my resume as I was a transitional leader, because I can take those pieces and put them together to forge something new that's true and is right,
Mm-hmm.
and makes sense for the people that are there. And as far as the state house goes, we're in that time, we are in transition. And so this is not even a desire of mine, it's a calling. I didn't choose this job, the job chose me.
Mm.
So I'm just following my faith into this situation, knowing that wherever we end up, it's all going to be good.
Yep. Come on, Senator, bring it. Come on, let's have some church. We can do
I
that.
am just the supernatural peace. I love that description of it. I'm working on that, Miss Washington. I am working on that, but I do get a sense of peace from it. The tumult for me is that I have a creedal verse. It's the best version of the creedal verse is from 2 Corinthians chapter 8, roughly verse 22. For we aim what is not only honorable in the Lord's sight, but what is honorable in the sight of men as well. And I think if you were writing it today of people as well, he might have said, Paul, sometimes he needed to work on that a little bit. But
Yeah.
and the reason why I refer back also to 2 Luke chapter 252, which talks about Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and favor with both God and man. That spoke to me because I believe that our job as people who are believers is to be deeply concerned about our faith, but humble about it in the sense that we shouldn't be deciding what God really feels because we're finite trying to understand an infinite being. That's one. Two, that our faith should shine however it's comfortable for us, but it should be sincere, ever growing, and it should be accessible so that if I'm working on getting the Lord to love me, I can do that, but I might lose all the people that are my neighbors.
Right.
And then what good is that? And if I'm always trying to make my neighbors love me only and not God, well, we know that that's folly too. So the trick is to be loving in a way that is honoring my faith's highest divine author. Or I had a professor who used to say, however you assuage your cosmic anxiety. And that's mine. But also is accessible to other people. And I felt like that also is the part about not being judgmental. I'm not perfect at it. In fact, I feel like I've got a lot of growing to do. I'm imperfect at it, but I'm sincere and trying to grow every day. Every once in a while, if somebody says something I think isn't nice, I might think they're not nice. That's judging. So I try very hard not to say they're not nice, but that action isn't nice. I don't know about them. I don't know how many bad or unnice actions have to be unnice. And that's not really up to me. I often say this about lying too. I know a lie when I hear it. That's a lie. I'm not saying you're a liar. I don't know how many lies you got to tell to be one, but I don't do that perfectly either. But it is where my head and heart try to get me to. So that's what I think helps me. I will say that I'm an integrated person. I hear that from Miss Washington as well, in the sense that who we are as people of belief. I'm a son. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a Democrat. I believe that Aretha Franklin's birthday should be a national holiday. I'm all these things all at once. And I'm not joking about that. I am. People who know me a long time, ask Miss Bolden if she doesn't know that about me. It's been something I've argued for.
Let me tell you, I was in love with you before I met you because of how much she loved you. Let me just tell you that.
I appreciate that. But my point is, I bring all those things to bear in anything that I do. However, I have to understand what part I'm going to draw on most when I'm doing something. So when I'm voting, I also have to think about the oath I took to the Constitution, which says that I am supposed to do things that are honoring both the Constitution of the United States and the state of Indiana. And to me, that means that every law that we pass ought to be based on something that looks like evidence-based decision-making or that's empirical. And while I believe in my faith and I can know things by faith, I'm not sure if that's the only reason or basis that I know something that ought to find its way into law.
I love it.
There may be my co-religionists that feel differently. And I hope if I'm mistaken that I get informed in some way, but I seek discernment in all of its ways. And I'm not light about that, but that's where I find myself.
I love it. And you know what? Nobody else is going to be judged for what you do anyway. That's the part I wish people would understand. Is like none of us, when you stand there and you whatever that judgment looks like with whatever deity that you serve, they are not going to ask you what was Indiana's own doing? Why didn't you? And I got to say this because again, I had a feeling something was going to be slightly different tonight because my show started off a little different than normal. Yeah. People around the state know that I give a halfway decent speech. And when I tell people is, okay, yeah, I know it's me standing up there and I know you hear my voice, but it really ain't me. And so Miss Yvonne, I'm telling you, when you said that it's a calling, Dana wants to be an elected official. Indiana's own wants to be an elected official. But the role that I'm probably supposed to be is a motivator and use my skill set to hype people up. And if I just listen and behave and obey and do what I'm supposed to do, but I want to be an elected official. But you know what I'm saying? Like the human wants to do the thing, but the divine sets you up and puts you in places. Like 5 years ago, I would have never known how to put a studio together. Now, not only do I have a studio, it's a mobile studio, and I can do these shows and do videos, and because the divine gives me what I'm supposed to do, I'm supposed to be a helpmate to my kids. I had to say that because I knew y'all was bringing that energy. All right, let's turn to some not so esoteric stuff.
Wait, Dana, before we go on, and part of our responsibility too is loving unconditionally. Without judging, and sometimes loving unconditionally includes telling people the truth to their face, you know,
Yes.
making sure the truth comes forth, and something about your voice, you know, that's our connection. We talked about, you know, the voices of African American women being restored, and so that power in your voice, every time you come on the air, you release such joy. And so, you know, the divine is there. So don't ever try to let people diminish who you are or to silence your voice, because that's part of your power and the
Mm.
peace that you bring.
Whew. All right, let's talk about tangible things. This is cool because, uh, Yvonne, you talked about being, running for trustee, and that is about, giving to those who are in need. And Senator, you
Yes.
talked about, understanding the finances. The other misconception I think that's out there about us Democrats is that we just tax and spend, tax and spend. We don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to balance a budget. We don't know how, to be fiscally responsible, fiscally aware,
Mm.
things of that nature. Senator, I'm gonna start with you. Talk about the importance of how you look at things from a fiscal standpoint when we have a state that has this amazing surplus and reserve,
Mhm.
but a lot of holes in
Yes.
our roof.
Thank you for saying that. Firstly, the whole point of having public resources is to do public goods. The fundamental ones are the ones that you think about. Public safety, for example. They ought to be adequately, as well equipped as possible. They ought to be equipped with a decent career path too, so that they feel like they can stay in it and grow as people career-wise for their personal satisfaction, which makes them better at doing the things that they have to do for us, whether it's enforcing the law or running into a burning building to rescue us, which I think is an amazing thing. Then beyond that, in the case of the state, we're talking about the National Guard and those sorts of things. But fundamentally, the whole point of having government gather resources the way it does is to support those goods and services that the private sector is unwilling or unable to provide. That is a fundamental definition. It's economic about why government exists. So then we want to be smart about how we fund it. Firstly, you want to make sure that in a perfect system, some part of ability to pay is considered when you design a tax system that is fair, because ability to pay is actually a fair and recognized meaningful way to decide whether or not your tax system is going to work and be fair.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, you want to say who benefits from the service. So there are some services that's easy to measure and other services it's not. My best example is I can't tell you I'm going to be a big user of the fire department, but I absolutely want them there when I need them.
Absolutely.
And so no one of us could afford the fire truck, but all of us together with our little fair allocations of taxes or public fees, make sure that they're trained and ready to go with good equipment for when they need them. And so it becomes affordable. So we've all together put together our resources and leveraged it for a great public good. In the case of things that are more like what we call in public finance, now I'm showing off a little bit, a toll good, that'd be like parks and recreation. So, I don't want to have to pay for the softball team or playing on a softball game if I'm not going to be on the team. But I'm glad we have a park that they can play in. So we charge them fees and they pay as many fees as they need to utilize it because they fully benefit from being on the
Right.
team.
Sure.
And there's an indirect benefit for me for everywhere else. So those kinds of ideas, I hope that I'm returned to the state Senate, and I'm hopeful and believing I can, but I'm hopeful in this sense. I want to start from the basis that we have a good system. I won't be critical. I'm going to start from we have a good system, and that doesn't mean we can't challenge ourselves to be better. I think we
Right.
need to enhance the ability that we do a forecast. I have personally had an ethical rule when I was doing it in my former position that I would not make my estimates so underestimated or so wildly underestimated that I meaningfully denied the legislative body who needed to make the decisions about spending on that money a meaningful choice.
Mm-hmm.
If I so understated it, it might deny them the ability to add 2 new programs in
Mm-hmm.
recreation or another planning inspector or another police or firefighter. That's the sort of thing. So I don't want to do it. On the other hand, I want to be conservative enough that I know I'm going to meet my targets in a meaningful way. So I had a 10% rule either way in my old job. I don't know what we do there. I know we have really talented committees and really good people that do those estimates. But because we're a state and there's some more resources we could gather, I'd like to explore ways to make our estimates more meaningfully accurate, more meaningfully reliable, maybe use multivariate regression.
Yeah.
Now that definitely was showing off. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So,
Miss Yvonne, jump on in
but
there. Oh, sorry.
yeah, but I think those are the kind of things I hope to bring.
Yeah.
Well, I was just, hearing the fairness and being equitable, and being able to set priorities, for the
Mm-hmm.
benefit
Yeah.
of all. That says it all right there. Because again, it's not about, what we want. It's having that, desire and the opportunity to move Indiana out of the, what is it, the
Mm-hmm.
bottom fifth of, all the 50 states. I think we can go higher. I think we can attract and retain wonderful people who have great things that they want to contribute, to this state. But it's make shift, and that's what true leaders do. We shift cultures to, get to better places.
I love it. I love it. Okay, see y'all. I know y'all got to get back out there, and it's we done ran through an hour real quick. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
look, I don't be playing. Turn left is fun. You know what they say? Time flies when you're having fun. Okay, so now I gotta do a little bit of policy. I mean, for me, I love that this show is not your typical debate show, facts. I want people to know who you are and love you like I do and donate and help your campaign, knock doors and things like that. But we do have to talk about a little policy. Okay, each of you, give me the 3 topics that you're running your race on, and then tell the people where they can find you. Mike, you can go first.
Well, I broadly say that I'm fighting for fairness, that I want to champion Hoosier families. I'm looking at my card. And I want to stand for teachers and education. I do believe that one of the meaningful reforms we have to do for public education is to make our compensation better, to treat teachers as professionals. That's going to help retain good teachers. And we do have a pending teacher shortage. So we need to make it attractive as a profession so that there's professional regard for them in order to get recruiting. That's one. Another one would be the hope that we would do something a little bit about dealing with, to deal with the issue of early child care.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pandemic taught us that schools do a lot of things for us. While teachers are not caregivers in the sense that they're educators, we know that there's a school day that provides activities for our students that helps us as parents who might be single parents working or 2 parents working, that cares for our children in a safe place that we can rely on. And I do think that it's more and more, when I was growing up, kindergarten was optional. And that was supposed to be the thing that prepared you for the rest of your schooling, 1 through 12. Now K through 12 is a given. And I think pre-K, which is largely done as a, sometimes in the faith community, but as a private sector service, has become essential.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize until we had our daughter how much they needed all of those skill sets to get them ready for kindergarten. And there was a sort of a readiness that I hadn't expected. So I think it may be something that we need to explore. I know we can't do it overnight, but we should start exploring the policy and moving towards perhaps public pre-K for a lot of good policy reasons, which we think is critical for continuing the success of our students. It may become even essential to try to deal with some of the latter effects of the pandemic where we had to shut down. And it wasn't any fault of anyone or schools, it just was. This thing sort of happened. But now that we're aware of the impact on children, we need to make sure that there isn't going to be this generation that's going to be hobbled because we didn't intervene, recognizing they needed to have some intervention and not do that.
I love it.
Those are the things I hope I worked on, in addition to whatever new ideas that we see that I'll have to respond to down there. I hope I get a chance to be one of the people working on the fiscal side too.
You stay positive. You will be. Now tell the people where they can find you.
I have to always read this because I don't even look at it. www.griffin4, like the number 4, senate.com. I'd love for you to visit me there. I also have a Twitter account at Griffin4Senate, also the number. And I also have a Facebook account at Griffin4Senate as well. Please find me there. People who are smarter than me help me keep that up to date. And sometimes I even go on and see what people are saying and respond. Indiana's own Miss Dana Black, you are so kind to have us both on, but I'm especially grateful that you let me be able to be on today. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And tell one last thing before you go, because I know you're trying to get out in them streets, and I ain't mad at you. I know you itching. I feel that. Do you have any events or volunteer opportunities that people need to know about?
We always have volunteer opportunities. If somebody's interested in helping us, that they want to help us do canvassing, because that's mostly what we're doing now. We would love for that. And I think those can be found and made available at any one of those, probably the Griffin for Senate website
I love
for
it.
me.
All
Would be
right.
the first place to go to. But thank you for asking about it.
Absolutely. Okay, Miss Yvonne, give me your 3 issues that you want to fight on when you get into the State House and where the people can find you.
All right. Women's rights. So more than reproductive rights, which is one of the top priorities right now, but valuing women has to be the priority. So that's going to be reproductive rights, being able to make the same wages for the same work, safe housing, which is the second one, but also becomes a women's issue because we have a majority of the single head of households are headed up by women, women with children. So adequate health care, everybody doesn't qualify for Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
They like to use that as a throwback. So taking that into consideration, supporting our teachers, financially with the surplus that we talked about earlier, having the conversations about taking a portion of that to fix the deficiencies in the teachers' salaries and the support. They are still paying for their own supplies.
Right.
And, classroom management has become just as big as the teaching responsibilities. So making sure they have trained paraprofessionals, and assistants that are paid well to do this work of educating our children. The website, I put it in the chat. It's
Chat. Wait, I'm my own engineer. I can't do chats.
Well, I didn't know how much time we were going to have, and my feed was starting to freeze, so I put it in the chat.
Excellent. Let me see if I can grab that out of there. But you go ahead, keep talking.
Elect C Yvonne Washington Weebly WEEBLY.com. Did you see it?
Yep, I got it.
Awesome. And then the email is C, which is my first initial period, Yvonne, the number 4, HD56 at proton.me.
I love it.
And on Facebook, it's just Washington for House District 56.
All right. And see, I'm posting it right now in the Facebook.
Awesome.
That's why y'all getting the side of my face online. Sorry about that. All right. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Got your
okay,
picture.
now I got to.
Yeah, we have your picture.
Okay, I done messed up now. I think I done messed up my whole. I did that. I am so super talented. Like, there we go. Move y'all over there.
We agree.
Move y'all over there. That's what I did. I need to move that back. All right. Okay. Thank y'all so much for joining me today on Turn Left. Senator and Ms. Washington, y'all are going to be fabulous for our State House. I think it is more than important that yes, we talk about policies, right? There's always a need to talk about policies. You guys have been in debates, you've been hitting events, but sometimes we want to know who the person is that we're hiring for the job too.
Right.
And so you two, I mean, literally, the show started off very different. So the anointing was already underway before I even had anything to do with it. And so thank y'all so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come talk to our Turn Left folks. You guys are amazing. All right, Indiana's own Dana Black, Turn Left. This has been one of the more uplifting and fulfilling shows when you have this kind of positive energy trying to serve you in the State House. We need to send them there. Because, everybody can scream about being righteous. Everybody can talk about, you can stand on the floor and talk about I'm here to serve Jesus when actually you were not elected by Jesus. Jesus did not cast not one vote. Did not cast one vote. You were supposed to be representing the people in your community because that's what you was elected for. Understand that all of us have a sense of understanding and a belief system that we all could adhere to. But governing is different. That's why there is that separation. And anybody that tells you there's not a separation of church and state, they out their mind. They don't know what they're talking about and don't vote for them. They don't know what they're doing. But these two get it. And what their faith teaches them is to be compassionate. So when they're writing policies, those policies are going to have positive impact on humans or the environment or all living creatures. You see what I'm saying? You want to elect people who are going to put humans first. And you have to be able to have compassion and empathy and not just feel sorry for them or be like they just too lazy or not understand their circumstances and all that other stuff. Those are the kind of people of faith I believe in because it's not about them. It's about serving you. All right. So find those candidates and support them. All right. Indiana's on Dana Black. We have one more show before Election Day. My state rep will be on that show, Greg Porter, but I'm working on a surprise. I'm still working on a couple of things, but he's been locked in. I got to close it out with my guy, right? That's just how it is. I got to close it out with my guy. We will catch y'all next week. Y'all make sure, if you haven't gone to early vote, make sure you take a friend, take somebody with you, carpool it up. If you have a Prius, I don't know what to tell you, get somebody's SUV and load them all up and just take people to the polls. As Destiny Wells has been saying, and if you had a chance to check out my video, I created a video and a fundraiser. It's on my Facebook. I'm trying something new here. It's called Turn Left Quick Pitch. 6 minutes. Watch her video. She gives you a lot of information. But y'all, go vote.
Yes.
Go vote. Indiana's on Dana Black. Turn left. I'll holler at y'all next week. Peace.